What is up everyone, I am Demon Cringe, and today I want to talk to you about the classic 90s Marvel cartoons. You remember those, don't you? Back when Marvel didn't suck ass, they used to make some of the most epic action cartoons of that era. Unlike the horrible movies that we got down the line, like for example the Hulk and Iron Man movies, these cartoons are all based on the original comics written by Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, and other amazing writers. They featured really good animation for the time, extremely detailed character and environmental designs, and of course amazing coloring. You can just tell that they put a lot of effort into these shows. All of these shows ran as Saturday morning cartoons on awesome channels like Fox Kids, which was later rebranded into Jetix. They also received huge critical acclaim from both critics and fans alike. For this video I want to talk about three cartoons in particular: X-Men, Iron Man, The Incredible Hulk, and what makes them so awesome. So without further ado, let us get on with it with the X-Men. Now, unlike the other Marvel cartoons, X-Men had a huge abundance of originally written plotlines, but of course, there were also a lot of episodes that had a lot of stuff from the comic books, especially for seasons 1 through 2. And obviously, you just can't talk about this show without first mentioning the great two-parter pilot, Night of the Sentinels, which actually featured multiple adaptations from the comics, such as the Mutant Registration Act from Uncanny X-Men issue 141, and Jubilee's first appearance from Uncanny X-Men issue 244. The first part of the episode is about Jubilee's debut as a character, as her foster parents sign her up for the Registration Act, which they believe is made to help mutants, but is actually a huge hit list. The X-Men are then tasked with going to the Mutant Control Agency's base and destroying the registration files. In part 2, Jubilee is abducted by the Sentinels. The X-Men later go on to the offensive to try to save her and deal the final blow to the base of the Mutant Control Agency. Jubilee is then freed and decides to stay at the X-Mansion, saying goodbye to her foster parents. Hilariously enough, this episode was also aired as a sneak peek preview, despite having a number of animation errors, which was of course later fixed when the show actually premiered. And honestly folks, I really do want to find a recorded version of the episode with all of the errors. I would really love to, you know, see where they messed up and all that. Now, another awesome thing that really made this show cool is how in line it was with the comics, because just like the comics, the show dealt with a lot of serious social issues such as racism, divorce, the Holocaust, AIDS, hysteria, child abuse, and even slavery, such as in the episode Slave Island, where mutants were brought into the island of Genosha for forced labor. This was of course adapted from the issues of Uncanny X-Men 235 through 238. Now, this episode in particular actually had to be tweaked a few times to be considered okay for children's television, which of course is reasonable because yeah, I mean, the topic that it deals with is pretty serious, so yeah, I really don't blame him for that one. The X-Men cartoon wasn't just awesome in the animation department, but also in the terms of taking risks, such as, you know, like I said, the whole deeper meanings thing, and I'm honestly glad that they actually went down that route instead of watering it down. Personally, season 1 was my favorite, as it featured many iconic events from the comic books, such as the appearance of the Sentinels, Magneto trying to start a war between the humans and the mutants, and of course Apocalypse wanting to engineer a plague and blame it on the mutants. And now folks, we move on to Iron Man, and by the way, even if you're a woman, after watching this intro you will have a full-on lumberjack beard, I guarantee you that. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that is Iron Man, specifically the intro for season 2, because the intro for the first one kind of sucked ass, like the entirety of the whole first season. But I gotta say, huge difference from the crappy ass movies, am I right? Like, oh my god, they ruined Mandarin so much in the third Iron Man movie, I just makes me want to rip my hair out and jump out the window. Now with that out of the way, Iron Man was a cartoon that pretty much changed its direction completely from season 1 after a new studio got in charge, and it was a good move in my opinion. After the change, the cartoon practically felt like an entirely different show altogether, as season 1 had a pretty boring one-off episodes with less than stellar voice acting, and unfortunately the ratings didn't fare any better. In season 2, they basically made the storylines much more complex to be more in line with the comic books. Unlike season 1, which was mostly centered around Iron Man versus Mandarin and a typical good versus evil cookie cutter scenario, season 2 actually had multi-part episodes, linking narratives, and Mandarin having finally lost all his power, only leaving him with small minor appearances as he tries to find all of the rings. Thank God for that. Featuring really good storylines from the comic books, such as Armor Wars, which was actually a 7-issue story arc from Iron Man issue 225 to 231, condensed into a 2-part episode where Justin Hammer and Ghost try to steal the Stark armor designs and sell them to the armored criminals. Now, part 2 of the episode is actually a huge example of how well, the season 2 studio actually handled the whole show. In part 2, Iron Man breaks into the vault to take care of the enemy armors, and later gets into a fight with Stingray, who he thinks is using stolen Stark designs. War Machine tries to talk Iron Man out of negating Stingray's armor, but Stark actually ends up doing it anyway, which almost ends up killing Stingray. So, like with all the other changes that I mentioned, season 2 actually featured much more mature themes like consequence, such as in the Tony almost killing Stingray. In part 2 of the Hands of the Mandarin finale, Mandarin actually finds his rings and tries to take on Iron Man. He tries to attack using the rings, but Iron Man reflects his attack, and unlike in the comics where he basically just ends up with amnesia, in the show it's actually implied it ended on a much darker note than was previously expected. So in the cartoon itself, just like in the comics, Iron Man blasts the attack back at Mandarin, and Mandarin ends up having amnesia, which knocks him out. But later when he wakes up, he is actually located by a gang of raiders that presumably kill him to steal the rings, either that or chop his hands off, which yeah, it basically just says that season 2 studio really wasn't kidding. The second season of Iron Man was really good in my opinion, and it was a hell of a lot better than all of the other Iron Man movies that we got combined, that's for sure. Unfortunately, the show only lasted for just 26 episodes, as the damage from season 1 was already done, and the ratings unfortunately never recovered from that. So now with Iron Man done, we go to the final show I want to talk about, The Incredible Hulk. And by the way, everyone, this has got to be one of the best action cartoon intros ever made. Just take a look at it. What did I say, folks? One of the best action intros ever. I swear to God, I still get chills whenever I see Hulk's shadow flying across that building. I mean, come on. This intro practically sums up everything that this cartoon is gonna be. It's basically like a window into Bruce Banner's mind and all that. Like, the only things that are left out of the intro are like just a few comedic moments here and there. The cartoon was of course based on the original Hulk comic written by Stan the Man and Jack Kirby, with Stan acting as one of the executive producers. It first ran on UPN and unfortunately only had 21 episodes. This show actually started off from the point where Banner was actually established as the Hulk and was pursued by General Ross while trying to find a cure for himself. Like the other Marvel shows having ongoing story arcs, the Hulk was obviously no exception, with its Longest Darkness and Light being a three-parter featuring really important moments such as the first encounter with the Leader from Tales of Astonish issue 62, Hulk and Ross fighting together to save Betty from the Wendigo, and of course a really big moment, that being Banner suffering a heart attack after Ross crashes his and Betty's wedding, Bruce having to re-merge with the Hulk in order to save himself, which of course led to the creation of the Grey Hulk, aka Mr. Fix-It. And of course one of the biggest points of the Hulk storyline, that being the time where Bruce's cousin Jennifer Walters is hurt really badly by Dr. Doom and Bruce having to give her a blood transfusion, transforming her into the She-Hulk. So everyone, upon hearing all of these awesome, pivotal moments from the comic books, you would think that Season 2 would be, good if not better than Season 1. Well, you'd kind of be wrong, because Season 2 is really the point where things start going downhill. So two things actually happened in Season 2. The first one was UPN told the studio to make the She-Hulk a regular character to quote-unquote give female viewers a chance, and later on the show was rebranded into The Incredible Hulk and She-Hulk with a completely new intro while keeping the same song. Now I do know what all of you are thinking. You're thinking like, oh DC, why are you saying this wasn't such a bad thing? Like UPN obviously told them to make She-Hulk a regular character just for the sake of pandering and all that, but the thing is, this is the She-Hulk, okay? So Marvel was actually in a really good situation, as the She-Hulk was obviously a established and well-developed character, and in my opinion, even if the network did not request her inclusion, I do think that because of the story and where it goes in the comics, I do think that they would put her as a regular character, down the line and all that. But while Marvel did ride with the She-Hulk, UPN also said that Season 1 was too dark. Yeah, it was too dark for little kids. Now, I'm not saying that every single one of the comedic moments were bad. I'm just saying that there were more bad ones than good ones. The biggest bad one, in my opinion, is how they made MODOK, whose name is literally an acronym for Mobile Organism Designed Only to Kill, into a simple comedic relief character that actually has a crush on the She-Hulk. The ending of Season 2 really did show that they obviously didn't want to end it off so early, as the whole thing just felt super rushed. Basically, the whole ending was just Ross all of a sudden deciding to not go after Bruce Banner anymore, and of course Bruce not having any more problems with the Green and Grey Hulks, thus basically becoming a whole kiss and make up type of ending with no substance whatsoever. They just all lived happily ever after, So that's The Incredible Hulk. It started out great, but UPN unfortunately ruined the whole thing, and what's really sad is that a lot of these 90s Marvel cartoons were actually really short-lived, except for the X-Men, which ran for 5 seasons. These cartoons really did have their ups and downs, like with Iron Man starting with a cheesy cookie-cutter first season, and Hulk basically being the exact opposite with a mediocre and rushed second season. Regardless of how they turned out, these cartoons are all still classics, and I'm honestly super happy that I was able to watch them as a kid, and I honestly hope that you feel the same way as well. Anyway, everyone, that about does it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe and press the bell icon, and if you wish to support me in a different way, my Patreon link is in the description below, and as always, I'm Demon Cringe. I'll be seeing you guys and gals in the next video.